Western civilization is moving closer to a point of irreconcilable, unstable equilibrium, as frighteningly increasing numbers of people trust nothing. Media, academia, and especially the governments are no longer held in high esteem. Regaining trust is often impossible after betrayal. However, transparency is essential to any healing process, and that is the essence of the Don Sullivan Show. Please listen to the team explore, probe, and debate cutting-edge science, technology, and computing. Play ball!
Welcome to a very special episode of the Don Sullivan Show. As you can hear, Don is currently on the road, and you're going to learn more about that very shortly. I'm your co-host, Jersey Steve. First, we want to thank our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by License Fortress, the industry's first and only software asset management firm to offer both a financial and legal guarantee at its highest level of service. Whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, or VMware, License Fortress helps organizations stay compliant, avoid audits, and save money. You can learn more at licensefortress.com. And please support our producer, our wonderful producer, Bill Axt, by visiting axtinc.com. That is AXTINK.com. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel and help support his efforts to create humorous animation, as well as run our website, all while researching a cure for baldness.
Welcome today, folks, once again to the Don Sullivan Show. And if it sounds like I'm walking along today, I am. And if it sounds like I'm breathing a little bit hard, well, I'm starting out at 11,000 feet. And if it sounds like there's some weather in the background, well, there is, even though we're really early here at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is what you have to do, or what you should do, to climb a Colorado 14,000 foot mountain. Well, I've done this before. I'm going to give you a little bit of history before we actually get into the specifics of where I am. Today I'll be, for the most part, solo. And again, our good friend and folk hero, Jersey Steve, will come by later to talk about the promotions and our sponsors and make some comments, and who knows, maybe even a surprise appearance. We'll see if I can arrange that. But this is a very, very interesting and incredible scenic type of audio podcast. It's one of the few cases where I really wish I could show you all the incredible scenery of the majestic peaks, purple mountains majesty that surround the area that I'm at right now. But I'm starting out at Grinnell Pass, and I'll tell you in a little bit here exactly where I'm going and exactly what this is about, what this show is about today. Remember, the Don Sullivan Show is a show that covers everything science, technology, and computing on a level that your average American teenager can understand. And we'll see if your average American teenager, who could probably beat me up this hill, this mountain very badly, well, maybe not the average one, but a lot of them, will be interested in having a discussion about the obsession of Colorado. In fact, the title of this episode, A Colorado Obsession, The 14ers. So we're back here, walking along a boardwalk that was put in, and again, I'll tell you about that specifically as we're walking along. About 20 years ago, this used to be a lot more difficult. But there's an obsession in Colorado with very high altitude mountains. It's called the 14ers, as I mentioned. There are 58 named peaks, and well, 54 or 53 of them, 54 I really think, meet the specific criteria of having 300 foot of prominence, meaning an area higher than any other in every direction around them. Some of these named peaks have only 250 foot of or 200 foot of a saddle between each other, so they aren't listed by the National Geographic Service as separate mountains, but believe me, and I've done this, going back and forth between them is no easy feat, especially when you're at 14,000 feet, which has about 65% of the oxygen of sea level. So you've got to be acclimatized, you've got to be in relatively decent physical condition to make it back and forth. One of those examples is Cameron Peak. This is in the Mosquito Range. This is between the famous Mounts Democrat, Lincoln, and Bross. Now, I've done that a number of times, many years ago actually, and as I said, believe me, it's not easy moving back and forth between all of those, but those are the types of mountains, if you're a peak bagger, as they are referred to somewhat derisively, you can do them all in a single day. You park down at the Kite Lake parking lot, which sits around 11,000 feet, and you get up and down all of them. Now, you can do them all individually and climb them all individually. That's just how we in Colorado refer to it. Or you can do them all together. And they have different attributes, they have different features, but in that case, all those peaks are among the 58 peaks that are over 14,000 feet in Colorado. Mount Rainier, the massive volcano in Washington State, as well as 12 other mountains in California, qualify as 14ers as well, although that lingo is not used in the same way. Those include the Mount Whitney, which stands at 14,505 feet, which is the highest peak in the lower 48, as we refer to them. You have to go up to Alaska in the United States to get a higher actual mountain. The stunning Mount Shasta, if you've ever been up in Northern California, is also among those. Interestingly enough, none of them are the highest mountains or the biggest mountains in the United States. Certainly the Denali Summit, at I believe 20,322 feet, is the highest peak. It's legally named Mount McKinley, usually referred to as the Denali Summit in the Denali National Park and Preserve. The actual biggest mountain, in fact the second biggest mountain in the solar system, is Mauna Loa, the volcano in Hawaii. The reason it's such a large mountain, even though it only reaches 13,000 foot something above sea level, is that it goes down, I think 17,000 foot into the ocean, and it's so massive that it actually pushes the crust of the ocean down another mile. So it's unclear exactly how big it is, but other than Olympus Mons on Mars, it is the second biggest mountain in the solar system. Of course, the highest mountain above sea level on Earth is Mount Everest in Nepal, and that sits just above 29,000 feet. I myself have been to Mount Everest Base Camp at 17,596 feet, and man, do you take short breaths up there. In addition, in Colorado, which is just amazing, there are another 637 13ers. The people in Colorado who have been experiencing a quickly shifting political landscape over the recent decades have just to look west from Denver, which is really defined by the north-south running Interstate 25, to see the vast number of extremely large mountains, and again, somewhere in the realm of 690 total mountains that are over the 13,000 foot mark. The experience of the Colorado Rockies lets you accept the immense stability of the Earth, at least on a geologic scale, as opposed to a political scale, or a political experience overall that we have seen here in Colorado and in many other states around the country, of course. So let's talk a little bit about the Colorado Plateau. It's a little bit of a misunderstanding of how that all works. The Colorado Plateau itself is caused by the subduction of the Pacific tectonic plate from the west under the North American plate, extending all the way to the middle of Colorado, resulting in the modern, and I say modern, I'll explain that in a minute, Rocky Mountains. The Front Range, which is all the mountains we're going to be looking at today, and those mountains which go up and down I-25 through north-south through the middle of Colorado, they really start midway all the way into Colorado. And the Colorado Plateau itself, however, really starts at the western side of Rocky Mountain National Park, really where the Colorado River starts. It is fair, though, to point out that all the mountains of the Front Range are caused by that same uplift that caused the Colorado Plateau. That's just more of a nomenclature for geologists, I think, than anything else. Now, sometimes you also hear of geologists, scientists, people on the news refer to the ancestral Rockies. They were a result of a collision of the North American plate, and believe it or not, the African tectonic plates during the late Paleozoic era, around 300 million years ago. That was the time before the dinosaurs. The Siberian Traps event, which was a massive volcanic event in Siberia that lasted approximately 1 million years, about 252 million years ago, causing the greatest extinction event in the history of life on Earth, as it caused the extinction of approximately 96% of all sea life and 70% of all terrestrial life. It's known as the Permian extinction, and it marked the end of the Permian era, leading to the beginning of the Mesozoic era, which is the era of the dinosaurs. So today I'm going to take you, the vast audience of the Don Sullivan Show, up one of those 14s. We're going to walk together during the recording of this podcast. Please walk with me up this magnificent Mt Bierstadt, named after the historic landscape artist Albert Bierstadt of the 19th century Hudson River School of Art. I should say, member of the 19th century Hudson School of Art. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Bierstadt is one of the great, maybe the greatest landscape artists in American history, and therefore has one of the great mountains, one of the iconic mountains of Colorado and the American West named after him. So here I am starting this 7-mile journey, and it really is only 7 miles, and I'll be going down about 300 feet into the willows and the swamp that sits between Guanella Pass and the actual trail up Mt Bierstadt. 25 years ago when I first started doing these, there was no boardwalk and you had to slush your way or just slosh your way through what really was a swamp in the summertime, and it was really, really deep snow in the winter. Right away, you always needed snowshoes to take this trail. But once you start going up, you go up just a little bit under 3,000 feet, because Guanella Pass is at 11.5, and again you go down and then go back up quite a bit to get to the top of Mt Bierstadt. About 25 years ago, I actually came down here. In fact, if I remember correctly, it was December of 1997. It was late in the evening. It was December, as I just said, and I got stuck. My snowshoes got stuck and got kicked off. It was only about a quarter mile away from the road, but oh wow, it was very, very difficult to get my snowshoes back on. The snow was very soft because it was December, and I had a lot of trouble getting out of there. Fortunately, none of that's going to happen today. We're in the middle of the summer, and fortunately back then I was I think, a lot more capable of handling such a mishap. I was alone, which is never a great idea when you are. It's never a good idea to be alone when you're climbing anything, or when you're on a difficult hike under difficult outdoor circumstances. People knew where I was, but at the same time, nobody was going with me that day, so I went alone. Let's talk a little bit more about Mt Bierstadt, generally known as one of the more popular 14ers to climb. Tourists climb it, but they better be in great shape, because there's a sign at the beginning of the Mount Quandary Trail, which Mount Quandary is another very popular 14er out near Breckenridge in the middle of Colorado. But there's a sign that, despite the fact that Quandary is very popular and thought to be relatively easy, it does take about 4,000 feet in altitude. The sign says there's no such thing as an easy 14er. And I will tell you that you need to be early to avoid the thunderstorms, which usually happen around noon, and you need to be fit and you need to be well prepared, one way or another. Mt Bierstadt, again, is named after Bierstadt, the great Hudson River School artist. It sits at 14,062 feet. It's surrounded by Mount Evans, now known as Mount Blue Sky. Officially, the Department of the Interior renamed it a few years ago. And many other 13ers in the Mount Evans wilderness. I don't think that's been renamed yet. Including Mount Rosalie, which is approximately 13,600 feet, which I happened to climb a few weeks ago. Rosalie is Bierstadt's wife, with much more salacious apocryphal stories that I'll let you research yourself. But it certainly has a lot of Colorado and East Coast Hudson River School lore and interesting stories associated with it. The Hudson River School itself, I'll digress here for a second, was a community of New York State artists who initially concentrated on the scenes, the landscape scenes of the East, but around the mid-1800s, they all individually started journeying out west. When they returned, they created, from sketches that they had made, some of the great landscape paintings of the American West. That group includes Albert Bierstadt and Thomas Cole, Thomas Moran. You've all seen them. You might not remember who they are, but you've all seen pictures from them. Bierstadt and Cole, particularly Bierstadt, has a lot of very, very valuable paintings out west and so on that have themselves migrated out there. He spent his life back in New York, or back in the East Coast, with his Hudson River School community. He was actually a second generation Hudson River School member, but I think the most famous overall. Most of his paintings, in fact all of them really, are composites. They did sketches, and then they took those sketches and they created landscape paintings out of their memory. So they aren't exact replicas or exact paintings of any one particular mountain or another. They are interesting composites, again, of their memories, their sketches, other people's sketches and memories. And they're all absolutely wonderful and amazing if you like landscape art. Thomas Moran, is notable because he actually threw a bit of the contemporary time-relevant Impressionism. I wouldn't say he was Renoir or Monet in that regard, but there's a lot of, particularly with the Grand Canyon, impressionistic artwork, and the strokes on the different colors and such are much more along the lines of what somebody might see in their dreams, like the Impressionists were able to create of that era. And I think Moran, it's fair to say, added a lot of that into his landscape art, again, especially of the Grand Canyon. At the end of the 1800s, they all together were part of the founding group that created the Metropolitan Museum of Art, known as MoMA, along with the Louvre and a few others, possibly the most significant art museums on Earth. So as we move along here, and I start to get more and more out of breath, before I get too out of breath, I want to talk to you about how to climb a 14er and how to climb any mountain. I mean, specifically anyone that you maybe are not completely acclimatized to the altitude. And even those of us in Colorado here who live at 5,000 or 6,000 feet, most of Denver, and most of the Denver area is at 5,500, 6,000 feet. You go up into the west at all, you're at 7,000, 8,000 feet pretty easily. But nobody lives at 14,000 feet. Nobody lives at 13,000 feet. So you have to be prepared. You have to have what are called the 10 essentials. You're in Colorado, it's very dry. You have to have a lot of water. You should have a lot of water with you. You should eat food. I'm particularly bad at this, but you should eat food even when you're not hungry. Because one of the symptoms of being altitude sick is that you're really not hungry. You don't feel like eating. I will tell you, at the times that I've been at very high altitude, which we at the Don Sullivan Show might be at in a few months in Africa, at least we plan on it, you just don't feel like eating. They won't want you to eat. The guides and anybody who's with you is extolling you to eat, but you just don't feel like it. So it's important to eat. It's important to eat that morning. It's important to drink water all the time. A few sips here and there continuously. If you're not peeing every hour at least, you're probably not drinking enough water regardless. And you have to really pay attention, because even when the trails are there, which at some point around over tree line, which is at about 11,000 to 12,000 feet in Colorado, the trees disappear. The trails are still there a little bit. In this mountain, Mt Bierstadt, the trail will be very obvious. It'll be very crowded. There'll be lots of people going up. I can see them already, even though it's early in the morning. Happens every day in the summer. The terrain changes very fast. The weather changes very fast. So you've got to be prepared, even if you think it's going to be a beautiful, nice sunny day and the weather people told you it was. You've got to have the proper clothing. You've got to have really rainwear. You've got to obviously have the proper boots, maybe hiking poles and such. And you have to, again, be mentally ready to find the trail, find the route that you want, particularly in Mt Bierstadt. And this is not true with all the big mountains or all the 14ers. They're all different. Mt Bierstadt has a lot of boulders at the top of it. And I will tell you that I have twice over the years taken pretty bad falls on the top of these mountains. Actually on Y2K Eve, right at about noon on December 31st, 1999. I did a full back body flip and luckily didn't get hurt at all because I leaned back too far and I was carrying a full pack with all the stuff that I needed, or should have had at least. And then about 10 years ago, I was coming off the top and I went down a little bit too fast and landed on my left knee, and fortunately, again, didn't do much damage other than a bruise that lasted for a couple of months. So it's really important to pay attention, to take your time. You will find yourself significantly out of breath. You can hear me breathing a little bit hard right now, but this is nothing compared to what it'll be like in an hour and a half or so. What generally will happen is that because there's so much less oxygen than you're used to, even somebody like me who does this a lot and lives in Colorado, you'll find yourself out of breath, almost as if you just ran up the stairs, or you just ran a race when you were young, or something along those lines. But you'll also catch your breath very quickly as well. So you don't have to stop and stand around for 15 minutes. You just have to stop and stand there enough time to take deep breaths. You need to make sure that you breathe out as much as possible to get the carbon dioxide out of your lungs, to allow for space to take in as much oxygen as you possibly can on each breath. And that's actually an exercise that you can practice. It's also very important to make sure that you maintain proper grips. Because again, as I told you, it's very easy to fall, especially on the rocks at the top. Doubly especially if they get wet or slick at all. And more often than not, even through the entire summer, there's snow on the tops of these mountains above 13,000 feet. I don't think there will be any today in the route that I'm taking, but you never know, and there certainly could be ice spots. So you make sure that you have at least, not at least, but you have 3 points of contact, 2 hands, 1 foot at all times when you're climbing up the big boulders, especially at the end. Also, you want to go early enough that depending on your level of fitness, you can make it up to the top and you can get off the top by about noon. Because inevitably, always, every day in Colorado, you get thunderstorms in the early afternoon. And lightning, of course, likes to hit the highest points. And there have been a lot of people that have been hit by lightning. There have been people who have been killed. Of course, there have been people who have been killed by falling or other things on all these mountains. There are about 6 or 7 every year. There have already been a couple this year that unfortunately haven't made it back from their hikes. Not here on Bierstadt, but in other places. But I will also tell you that lightning hits hits Mt Bierstadt, hits them all quite often. And the biggest danger is not directly getting hit by a bolt of lightning, because that is really dangerous and you can die from that. But also getting hit by ground lightning. So one of the best things to do, especially when you're climbing down and you're popping back and forth between the boulders, is to try not to have multiple hands or multiple feet touching the boulders at the same time. It's so unfortunate that people don't understand that, particularly with their dogs. Dogs get killed all the time just by ground lightning, and people don't even see it. It's just all of a sudden the dog is dead. A human being is big enough that most of the ground lightning will just cause burns or knock you off your feet or something else, but won't likely kill you. Many dogs get killed as they're standing and jumping between the different big boulders when a bolt of lightning hits the top or anywhere that is on one of these mountains. And I actually was up on Mt Bierstadt middle of COVID about 2021, where I know that happened to some people who were about a half an hour ahead of me and were carrying their dog down. And it was a sad thing, but nature has its way of doing damage. So there you go. So let's proceed on. So we're moving up pretty well here. I'm at over 12,000 feet, and I'm starting to feel it. I'll feel it a lot more later. But I'm pretty confident that I'm going to get to the top here today. My fitness level is sufficient, and I certainly think it's a good enough day, and I'm not really concerned with the weather. I've been early enough and so on, and I followed all of the different protocol points. You can hear a plane overhead. It is interesting that sometimes you see even smaller planes come overhead and wave to you. But the next time we're talking to you, it might be on the boulders, or it might be at the top, and who knows, there might even be a surprise at the top of Mt Bierstadt. So I'll talk to you in a little bit. Well, folks, I'm at the boulder field that I did a backflip on 25 years ago at about 13,500 feet. If you can hear me sucking wind, and am I ever? Probably went on a little bit too fast. It's the first time I've been up here in 10 years, and certainly first time in my 60s that I've been up here in the last 10 years. Before I forget, I've got to give a lot of kudos to the Colorado project, Colorado 14ers project, and parallel projects that have done an incredible job at working on the various different trails up to 14ers, the Colorado obsession. They put in steps, they put in cairns with a C to light the way or lead the way for hikers. It's a very crowded day up here today, about 10:30 in the morning. can see forever, probably 50 miles in every direction. A wonderful day. So I really picked a good day to do this episode of the Don Sullivan Show. I have to be really careful now. I had to stop a few times. On the way up, I was breathing too hard. Also got stopped by some mountain goats and a couple of random marmots. But I mostly have to be careful because we're at the boulder field, and the boulder field can be very tricky. I have poles with me. I'm not sure the poles really help that much. But as I said, I fell down 25 years ago, so I've got to make sure that I'm really careful climbing very diligently and thoughtfully up this last quarter mile. So let's see if I can make it out this last quarter mile, and we'll continue with the show. Well, folks, I made it up here at over 14,000 feet. Again, amazing vistas, incredibly crowded, as I said many times here on the Don Sullivan Show, the Colorado Obsession. This is the most popular, I think, of all the 14ers. Despite the weather reports, the clouds are building. So if you notice, before 11 o'clock, we're liable to have some lightning strikes or some weather before that noon bewitching hour. So I'm gonna have my picture taken, maybe say hello to some people, and then we'll take off. Well, folks, we've got a real treat here. Despite how dopey I am, despite how crowded and loud it is, at this top of the world, at least in the continental lower 48 United States, we're going to call in my partner and our friend Jersey Steve. So let me give him a call. All right, Jersey Steve, you're back on the show. Say hello to the vast audience. In fact, there's a vast crew up here on the top of the mountain, but say hello at base camp.
Greetings from the Garden State, and congratulations to all the climbers. How long did that take you?
I got up here a little bit too slower than I thought I would. I was over 2 hours. Sucking wind a little bit too much, went out a little bit too fast. It's before 11. I see some clouds developing, so I'm going to get down. And we will talk on the way down. Maybe we'll have another live discussion at the end of this particular podcast. So what else have you got to say here from Flatland down there in Jersey?
Well, I'm probably breathing a whole lot easier than you guys.
Yes, you are.
Maybe not. But how high up are you right now?
Over 14,000 feet, Steve.
Is there snow up there still?
There is a little bit. No post holing, but a little bit at the bottom of the boulder field. There was a few weeks ago a lot of snow.
So perhaps a question, as a non-mountain climber myself, I look at mountains, I see trees, then I see rocks. What are the stages to get up Mt Bierstadt? Do you have to do scrambling, then bouldering? Do you need an axe? How does it work?
Well, I used poles at first. We went down into a bit of a swamp from Granella Pass. Then you get over tree line, through the willows, and it becomes very steep. And then you scramble through the boulders, and it becomes quite steep at the top. And on the way down here, I really have to pay attention. As I've already told the audience in this particular podcast, I've fallen twice on this mountain. Not for a long time. Yeah.
That's a bad idea or a bad thing to happen. So, do they have a line?
Thanks for taking our picture. I love my dogs. I'm happy to.
No, Steve, no rope lines. This is just a straight climb. And Steve, I think we're going to take off right now and start on the way down. And I'll give you a call sometime on the way down. How about that?
That sounds good. Same journey back.
All right, see you in a little bit. So hi there, sir. What's your name?
My name's Sid.
So you're in better shape than I am, Sid. So how was it getting up here, especially the last quarter mile or so?
Last quarter mile, I won't lie, it was a little hard. I'm wearing nothing but shorts and a t-shirt.
You're in shorts and protective clothing wear. You're in great shape there, guy.
Thank you.
So what about you? What's your name, sir?
My name's Mitch.
All right, Mitch, how'd you do?
I did pretty good. I just did, like, earlier this week, I did Grays and Tories, and then I've done,
Right.
I've done a couple others.
It's pretty amazing up here. You can see from every direction. I was on Rosalie last week over here,
Yeah, it's
and haven't been up to 14,000 in a few years. And you can tell right now looking at me.
It feels thinner, that's for sure. You hit that 13,000, it stops real quick.
So if I don't mind, how old are you guys?
We're 20.
I'm 19.
20 and 19. I'm a little bit older than you, but I'll tell you, you guys did all right. Good job.
Hey, God.
Okay, we have, say your names again, guys.
I'm Sid.
Mitch.
And I'm Don, and I'm really out of it. But these folks, they're both cadets, airmen from the Air Force Academy. So I want to thank them for their service and wish them luck in the future. And again, I just want to salute them. I, at one point, aspired to be in the Air Force, never made it, and I want to thank them and congratulate them. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely.
Well, folks, we survived the Mt Bierstadt, Colorado 14er hike and scramble level 3 climb at the end. It's been a couple hours, and I got down safely and just in time as the skies are looking to open up. The weatherman is never right in Colorado. It was supposed to be absolutely nothing today in terms of serious weather, but there is, and it's about right on time, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. It's an absolutely amazing state, amazing place to be, and I flippantly refer to the Colorado obsession, which is the 14ers, but it is a passion as well. People come here to do this, people stay here to do this, people move here to do this. I did. I moved here 30 years ago with the sole purpose, after my athletic career, of climbing Colorado mountains and mountains all around the world. I'm a little bit older now, but fortunately, due to my exile from Silicon Valley, I'm able to get myself back in shape and able to do this again. I will say some other things, which will be interesting as the various different episodes of the Don Sullivan Show and various adventures occur. I am having a little bit of trouble breathing over 13,000 feet, and I think that may be due to certain heart medications. I was okay. I was a little bit dopey at the top, obviously. You can hear it in the audio. It was an amazing time at top. Like I said, it was more crowded than I've ever seen. Had to be very, very careful getting down because I was a little bit dopey. But got down fast, got down well, got down safe, and now the storms are coming in. So, folks, thank you for listening again. Still a little bit dopey. I'm at Grinnell Pass, which is still 11,000 plus feet. Thank you for coming up Mt Bierstadt with me and the mountain goats and all of the other hikers. And I want to thank you for listening in and hope you download all of the Don Sullivan Show episodes, both the episodes we have with guests and the lone adventure episodes. But I will leave you with one thought, my most important thought, that even in the Colorado mountains, all at-bats are situational. See you next time.